There is an invisible battle. Not the invisible battle they speak about. But this invisible battle is a battle over our consciousness. We are constantly being assaulted and assailed with false notions and ideas. If we come from apes, our behavior will be just like apes and amoebas.
In order to get people to be under the influence of the idea or the philosophy that they want you to adhere to, they just give you talking points. Iraq is good. If they told you Iraq is good in the newspaper today, or Iraq is bad, America's going to talk about that today. If they talk about the Japan earthquake, you're going to talk about Japan earthquake today. If they talk about the Alaskan oil spill, America's talking about the Alaskan oil spill. If they talk about these things in the newspaper today, but they have a choice, a few topics. The creators of the news want a few topics to be spoken about today, either because yesterday's news needs momentum forward, or so basically. What advertisers and politicians and whatnot have taken from this research is that if you train human beings to do something, just like if you train a rat to do something, they're going to continue to do it. Number one, advertising trains us to do things over giant entities that are enormous. They have right-wing slant organizations and left-wing slant organizations that they pump in different areas. Now, they don't really care which way it goes, right or left wing. They're selling commercial space because they sell people cigarettes, they sell them toothpaste by pairing certain emotions, like they'll trigger certain emotions in children. They'll stick a tube of toothpaste out there with a cartoon character on it the same way that they'll stick a tube of toothpaste out there with Michael Jordan on it, because they'll trigger somebody's like a basketball the same way that they trigger some little kids like a spaceman. That's why they make vitamins into Fred Flintstone, and they make, designer clothes with graffiti on it. I mean, these are carefully placed things, not because they look cool, but because they know that people are already comfortable with certain psychological mechanisms. You're more addicted to the things that basically are causing you to forget about who you are. You are exactly the set of notions that you've acquired from the newspaper that you read. That's who you are. You're the set of principles that you've read from a certain book that the guy in the newspaper referred to that made you go out and find this book. I mean, these are all carefully orchestrated modes of life that they hope you adopt one or the other of. Because as long as you do, they know that because they've trained and devised these actual personalities. So as long as you adopt one of these personalities that the advertisers have assembled and pumped and promoted through television shows they've created, cartoons, training starts early. I mean, they start training you with cartoons, then they make television shows and movies to just enforce the character types and the training. And then you adopt one of these roles for yourself, and you start buying the clothing and listening to the music and giving them your money and creating a personality for yourself. And this is a scam of advertisers and media companies to sell us things that we don't need, that make us forget about our true nature and who we actually are. And when they start pairing our emotions with political slogans and political triggers, it basically allows them to mass hypnotize people, so that when people come out here and start chanting slogans like liberty or stay the course or democracy or and justice for all, it immediately triggers an emotional response in a mass. I mean, these are emotional triggers that are carefully articulated and carefully placed in speeches, on our money, on all our nationalistic emblems that are used the same way a hypnotist will tell somebody to act like a chicken. I mean, you can create a mass behavior through carefully placed slogans that politicians have adopted through psychological research that applies to rats, applies to human beings, applies to selling you toothpaste. It applies to creating a personality to give you to adopt, so you forget about who you are and you aren't really thinking about alternatives. You're going to buy the toothpaste and you're going to buy the newspaper, and you're going to buy the soup that they're selling in the store, because that's what is going to get you acceptance test, and that's what's going to get you to not be blah blah blah. That's it.
Is because they've taken the research that psychologists and biologists and other researchers have done in the 60s and 70s, notably Pavlov and B.F. Skinner, who have done an enormous amount of research on the behavior of animals and organisms that unfortunately can be applied to human beings by untrained people without some sort of ethical training. That they basically use these manipulatory devices to sell you stuff, to sell you toothpaste and ideas. And the way this is done is that the same way that Pavlov had figured out that it was done to a dog, that he realized one day while he was watching his dog that when he went to get the dog food, as soon as the dog started hearing the dog bowl, he noticed that the dog would start to salivate. And he was paying attention, so he was doing experiments, and he started to ring a bell while he would feed his dog. And he noticed that eventually, just ringing the bell caused the dog to salivate. So he started to realize that these responses, these involuntary responses that the dog was undergoing or adhering to, were paired with another involuntary response, which was the satisfying of the dog's hunger. So unconsciously, the dog had paired the noise he heard surrounding food, or the acquiring of food, and they became the same thing to the dog. So advertisers and politicians and media organizations use these same tactics to make us pair our emotions up with their product. So they basically use slogans like, we all know the slogans, you're the one. Like advertising slogans, they pair your emotions with their slogan, and they do a lot of demographic research and poll research to figure out what people are interested into at the time, what television shows people are watching, what kind of music people are listening to. They target certain demographics. Like, for instance, Nike sneakers, that happens to use all kinds of astrological symbolism, namely Nike. The word Nike is the Greek word that means victory. So they're taking an ancient word. Basically, the myth goes that the guy ran the marathon to give the news that Athens had won the war, and he said Nike, and he dropped dead. So Nike had taken this myth and created manufactured a corporation around it. They put the little swirls up there, which Nike is a moon of Saturn, so they use the swirls, which is basically the rings of Saturn, because Nike happens to have affiliations with Saturn. And they use the slogan like, just do it.
Don't give up, I know you can make it good.
Though I saw it all around, never thought that I could be a fainting. Thought that we'd be last to go. It is so strange the way things turn. Drove the night toward my home, the place that I was born, on the lakeside.